Hey y'all, so I'm finally here. This has been a long time coming. I've been talking about getting on YouTube for like 10 years, and for some reason it never happened. So here I am, it's 2023, 10 years later, and I'm doing my makeup. But one of the questions that I always get is, how did I get started in real estate? So I thought that would be a great question to start my channel with. While you're here, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Did I say that right? So this is super awkward looking at this camera. I've always been a BTS girl. Some of you may know that I used to be a wardrobe stylist. So behind the scenes is my shit. I really don't like being on camera, but I'm here. I'm not a gatekeeper, so I always want to share information. I get so many questions in my DMs, so many emails. People just even stop me outside talking about real estate, and it's so much information to share that why not do YouTube? So I'm doing my makeup actually for another video that I'm filming for my VIP mastermind that's coming up here in Atlanta. But I decided while I do my makeup, I would share a little bit about how I got started in real estate, right? How do y'all cute girls do makeup and talk at the same time? That's crazy. It seems like every time I start, I stop and talk. So this story is a little bit crazy. I have a very unconventional, path into real estate. It wasn't a traditional, hey, I want to be a cute, real estate agent, real estate girl, or I want to make money. It was literally like not in my plans. Like I said, I was a wardrobe stylist for, like 10, 12 years. And I also had a clothing store. So a lot of you may remember, I actually got some DMs yesterday from a girl who said that she wore some clothes from my store. So I had a boutique, online boutique called IndiaMonet.com, Shop India Monet. And so that was pretty successful. Like, I was a full-time entrepreneur and I was running my store and I was styling full-time. So in the middle of June in 2015, almost 8 years ago now, I had a pop-up shop. So I don't know if you guys remember when all the boutiques would have cute little pop-up shops, sipping shops. And so I did that in the middle of the summer, partially because summer is always really slow in retail. So it had kind of slowed down, like you do well during spring because people are getting ready for vacation, and then summertime is kind of when it dies. And so I was supplementing income as an entrepreneur by doing the pop-up shop. And my little cousin Taylor, who lives in Houston, was visiting. Well, she lives in Houston now. She actually was visiting Atlanta and had got into Atlanta the night before the pop-up shop, right? I was a full-time stylist. She had just graduated from Howard. She wanted to be a stylist, and she was like, hey cousin, I want to come shadow you for the summer. I was like, of course, right? So she had literally just drove from DC the night before, got to Atlanta, her first time in Atlanta. This is her first 24 hours in Atlanta, y'all. And we're leaving the pop-up shop later that evening around 9 o'clock. We were hungry. So entrepreneurs, y'all know when you work all day and you realize you did not eat anything, it was one of those moments where we were just like, okay, we're done. Let's go eat. We were starving. So we were in Buckhead, which is like a suburb of Atlanta for those of you that don't know. And is Buckhead really a suburb? I don't know, but it's like used to be like the rich area. Now it's a little ghetto. But anyway, we were shopping. We were not shopping. We were in a shopping area to go eat at a new restaurant that I didn't make it over to for like 5 years after this, by the way. But we were going to this restaurant, and all of a sudden, this guy was like flying. The police report says he was doing like 80 miles per hour up Far Road in Buckhead in Atlanta, and he smacked our car. And because Taylor had kind of veered a little bit to the left, the passenger side got most of the impact. So this man was drunk as hell. He was driving drunk. He ended up hitting us so hard that our car flew back up into a sidewalk, hit a tree. It only stopped from going into the restaurant because of the tree, but it also hit a waitress who was working at the patio in the restaurant, and she broke 3 ribs. So I'm a passenger, and let me tell y'all something about an accident of that impact. It is not fast. Like, oh, it happened so fast. Yeah, he was driving like 80 miles per hour, but it was not fast. Like, any of you that have been in accidents, I've heard a lot of people agree with me. Like, it was slow motion for me. Like, I remember when he was about to hit me, it was like, I remember telling myself, stay alive for Ty. And my baby was 4 at the time. And I remember saying in my mind, stay alive for Ty. And he hit us right after I thought that. When we flew up into the tree. And so Taylor got out. This is Buckhead, popping area, 9 o'clock on a Friday. It's so many people outside. We're right across the street from the Atlanta Fish Market. So you got that restaurant, tons of other restaurants, a nice shopping area. This is when the Buckhead Shops was first built, which used to be called like the Rodeo of Atlanta. But we were, happy to be going over there to have dinner, and it never happened. So this drunk ass man jumps out of his car and tries to run away. And because it was so many pedestrians and people that were going to the restaurants and going to shop in the area, they chased him, right? So some white people chased him and grabbed him and held him until the police came. And so we hit the tree, which stopped us. And I'm thinking, okay, let me get out of this car. So I'm looking down, I'm like, okay, I got the seatbelt off. Why can't I get out this vehicle? And the crazy thing, like, I guess it must have been my adrenaline. I didn't realize that the car was smashed down on my feet, literally for 35, 40 minutes. So my left foot, I was able to pull up out of the car. It has about 11 metal plates now. My right foot was stuck. It took the firefighters, the paramedics, and the police, and some drunk white pedestrians all trying to help to cut this car off my feet, because they couldn't just go cutting crazy because they didn't know exactly where my foot was, right? And so that's why it took so long. It was super chaotic. It was like a movie. It was literally like a movie. It was so many people surrounding the car. There was this guy that kept jumping in the back seat trying to give me shots. So he was like, what do you drink? And I was like, anything, right? So he went into the bar, he came back out, and was it the paramedics or the firefighter? I think it was the paramedics that were like, she can't have that. And so then the paramedics and the firefighters started to fight. They started to argue because the firefighters were trying to administer medicine through an IV. I didn't even know firefighters were allowed to do this. So they were trying to give me pain medicine while I was waiting to get my foot cut out of this car. And the paramedics was like, no, you can't do that because she could be internally bleeding and the medicine would make it worse. And so, I learned a lot in that 40 minutes, but my foot was completely shattered when they got the car off. So Taylor, my cousin who was driving, she ended up getting out, but her elbow was shattered too. So she has metal plates all throughout her elbow. And I don't remember getting put into the ambulance, but I do remember the ride, because we were literally like in sync, yelling every time the ambulance hit like a bump or a pothole, because we had shattered bones. So every time it would hit like a pothole, we would, both of us, like, it was intense, very intense. So, they're probably like, where the hell is she going with this? But I ended up in a wheelchair for about 5 or 6 months. So obviously, I say all that to say, as an entrepreneur, we work very hard at times. And I know I was busting my ass to build my career. I was traveling, I was flying to work on sets, I was doing book covers, videos, whatever it was paying, And so during all that time that I was collecting income in the fashion industry, I wasn't saving anything. And even with my store, the first year of my store, as my first year in entrepreneurship, my store did like $92,000 in sales, which was like great. I was young, I was early 20s, but as I elevated, I just wasn't thinking about saving, and I did think about investing. I remember watching YouTube videos sometimes, but you always think you have time. Like, I'll do it later, I'll get to it, right? The last thing you got is time. So what I realized, there was so many epiphanies at that time, but the main one was time is so much more valuable than money, right? And so during that time in the chair, again, so many light bulbs went off. It says it takes a certain amount of darkness before you can see the stars. And that's like the truest quote ever, because it was extremely dark for me. There was so many things I missed out on. Like my baby went to preschool and I couldn't be there on the first day. You know, it just uprooted and misplaced us. So we had to move out of we had a 3-level townhome. I can't roll around a 3-level townhome anymore, right? How do I get to the kitchen? So I had to move like 35 minutes away into a flat. You know, I couldn't bathe him. He's a toddler, he's 4 years old. I couldn't bathe him, I couldn't cook for him. You know, like the most I could do was use my arms. So I remember I would be so proud of ironing his clothes for school every day. But his dad had to do everything. His dad had to just, you know, we kind of switched roles. You know, like he was doing more of the motherly duties, the cooking and taking him to school every day and picking him up every day. And so, you know, I lost all of that. And in that time, I realized I could have been out of here. Like in a split second, I could have really been out of here. And so there was so many issues with that. I would have left him with nothing, right? So again, we work so hard and we don't think about investing. We don't think about, I know I can't compete with that. Sorry. Y'all, this is a loud ass street, okay? And it's the middle of traffic. What time is it? 4 o'clock on Thursday? Is it Thursday? Thursday is the new Friday in Atlanta anyway. It's the worst traffic day. But anyway, traffic is a little crazy. If y'all hear trucks, dump trucks, 18-wheelers, horses charting by, there you go. But anyway, yeah, so I realized I needed to be stable. I needed to create streams of income that would flow whether I was walking or not, whether I was here or not, because in a split second, I could have been gone. And it could happen again, and it can happen to any of us. And even if it's not a tragic, the tragedy where God forbid, I'm not here anymore, I could lose mobility again. You know what I mean? Like anything can happen. And so I realized then that we ain't safe. We ain't safe. So I needed to create safety. I needed to create just a solid foundation for my baby and for myself. I didn't have any savings, like I said. So it was only a few months now. I still had to pay bills. They don't give a damn if you're in a wheelchair. You ever heard them say, oh, you're in a wheelchair, don't worry about the lights, don't worry about the phone? No, none of that stops. They didn't care. And so I realized I needed to create passive income. So while I was in that chair, I started to study real estate investing. I was watching YouTubes. I was reading Robert Kiyosaki books, you guys. People always ask me, like, what are some of my favorite books to get started in investing? And the one that lit a fire in me was Rich Dad Poor Dad. You know, it's cliche, all investors say it, but it's the truth. It really shifts your mindset. So I read that while I was in the wheelchair. I'm a Gemini. We're busybodies. So you took my feet. I can't run around no more, run errands and do this and do that. So my mind was steady going, right? And I wanted to read. I wanted to absorb knowledge. So I started really learning real estate investing by watching YouTube videos, reading, and then I knew my credit was, like, your credit is pivotal. You can't do anything without it, right? So I knew that I needed to clean it up. Child, I was delete, this is not my debt, this is not my debt, this is not my debt. I was calling the bureaus, disputing everything. And listen, you do the same. If you have some things in your credit report, dispute them. Dispute it all. I disputed down, okay? And I did that for a few months. Even after I was in the chair, I was still disputing until my credit got where it needed to be. Then I went and got a secure credit card to start building up my credit. Then I started getting more credit cards. And so I knew that that foundation should have been built. You know what I mean? And now I'm thinking up and talking about it, it's kind of embarrassing. It's like, girl, you ain't have no credit. No, I did not have credit. And I know a lot of us don't, because we're not taught those things. I grew up hearing about credit. You know, I'm one of those kids that had bills in my name. Right? So, you know, I had to teach myself and I had to unlearn a lot of the things that I did learn growing up. And so that sparked my interest in real estate investing. So I got out the chair, and one of the first things I did was go to a real estate investing seminar. Now, people tell me all the time, lender over labels is no fluff. And I can't even lie to you, it's not. Like, but this one was one of those, okay, you sit there for 2 days, $500, and the ultimate goal for them is to push you in a $35,000 program that is a couple of days. And, you know, I did learn a little bit, but I still needed to keep going. But I reached out to a guy I knew back home in Ohio, where I'm from. He had 51 units at the time. And I told him, like, look, I'm trying to get into this game. I'm dead serious about it. He was like, actually, he didn't ask me if I was serious. Like, I called him and had a conversation with him. That's Miss Loretta, y'all. If y'all follow me on Instagram, y'all done hear me talk about Miss Loretta in her mouth before. And she outside fussing at my lawn guy, Mr. Theo. Hey, Mr. Theo. Don't come up. Oh my gosh. Is he about to come in here? He already got paid today, so he better not come messing with me. Anyway, where was I? So I reached out to this guy that I know back home in Ohio, where I'm from, and he had like 51 doors at the time. And I told him, like, hey, you know, I'm trying to get in the game, put me in the game. And, you know, I didn't realize that he probably thought I was bullshitting until my best friend told me, like, hey, he called me and asked me if you were serious. And I was like, what? Tell him I'm very serious. And so he ended up becoming my mentor, for lack of better words. And not only was he a mentor, he ended up becoming my contractor because he's a general contractor. And he had a whole team of people that did a lot of work on properties back home. So my first investment was my house, my condo here in Atlanta. If you've ever been to a lender over labels, you know that I do not suggest buying your personal property first. That's a whole nother lesson for another day. Maybe that'll be my next video. But I do think you should buy your investment property first. And so I feel like I made a mistake there. It kind of set me back. I would have been able to scale faster if I started with an investment property. But anyway, that's how I got started in real estate. And from there, I bought my first property in 2016. By 2017, I had 6 properties, so I scaled pretty fast. Now in 2023, I'm at 17 units. I don't have a number goal for my portfolio. I have hit 7 figures in my portfolio, and so that was a goal for me. I've reached that. Now, somebody asked me last night on Instagram Live what was my investment goal for this year, and I really want a vacation home in Tulum, so hopefully that'll be a video. So again, if you're still following, thank you. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Can you share videos on YouTube? I don't know. Oh, and share. And yeah. Oh, I gotta finish my makeup.